big dog. Oh, what up, everybody? Welcome to Friday here at Coffee Hour. You made it through the week. If you're still here, you made it. If not, we're thinking of you. But thanks for joining me today on Coffee Hour. We made it. Scruffy Paul is still here. Lazy Paul is still here. Working at the home office makes it really different than all those years I worked for NEMA and worked for a major manufacturer, having to be freshly shaved most of the time in a suit and tie or something like that every day for the last 11 years. So totally different working from the home office. I can tell you that right now. Anyway, welcome to Coffee Hour. Thanks for taking time out of your day, out of your week, to join us here at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, no matter where you're at. I know that on the West Coast, it is extremely early for you folks out there on the West Coast, but thanks for taking the time to join us. And also, thanks to everybody for the shout outs to bring people over. I have gotten emails from people where people have said, hey, I've let my coworkers know they're listening in the morning. Whether they're watching it or listening it on the mobile app while they're driving. It's another great way you can listen and glance. Don't do it while you're driving. Don't do it while you're driving. Adam, don't do it. But a lot of people are sharing Coffee Hour because it's just a good way to get your week started. We do talk a little code. We do have a discussion back and forth. And it's just great to get the juices flowing. I mean, being an electrician, one, is the greatest profession in the world. Hands down, okay? Don't care what anybody says. Greatest profession in the world. We're the creators and the makers of light. That's what I'm talking about. So at the end of the day, in this profession, we're constantly learning. And you know what? We can get very proficient with these, right? And I'm not so proficient, as you can see here. Can I attest? Okay. Can I attest that these little knives are sharp? Yes. I can attest to that. These little soft hands nowadays, all these years out of the trade, these soft hands, these real soft hands that I have, okay? These baby hands, okay? Was trying to cut something and wasn't paying attention. Cut myself, okay? That's why we have a lot of job sites today that are no knife sites. We get complacent. We weren't paying attention. But I was using one of these, and cut myself. Okay, I got a little boo boo, but nothing a Band-Aid. Manly man can't handle, and so we're back at it. But again, they are sharp. I will attest to that. Okay, so if you get one of those mini knives, be careful because they do not have a locking blade on them. So be careful. All right. So anyhow, so in this trade, we're constantly learning. And realizing that code and things that we learn about code, whether it's a little bit of code here, a little bit of code there, it's impactful for our learning process because everything that we do has to do with code. If you're a plans examiner, you're reviewing things for code compliance. If you're an installer, you're doing things and you're doing them and you don't know what you're doing it and you know the spacing rules, you know all the stuff. I didn't have any electrical tape on me, but that would have been my first thing to do is wrap some electrical tape, that type of thing. So Brandon, I see your lesson. We cannot get into those type of things at the last minute on Coffee Hour, especially as detailed as you want to get. That's something submit to paulabernathy.com and we can break it down, or submit it as a question to paulabernathy.com. It's kind of hard to take those kind of detailed questions, but I'll try to summarize it for you. But again, those type of, those are, when we have a lesson planned, it's difficult to get into these really deep questions that I know you're going to want because of calculations, but you got to try to hold back. Okay. Coffee Hour is not, it's tough to do those type of things, but we'll try to cover it at a level. But you have resources. You have the chat feature on the mobile app. You have the ability to send questions to paulabernathy.com and we will answer your questions. Okay. So if I don't get it full detailed, bear with me. Okay. Because I do have a lesson I have to cover. That type of scenario, but I get it. But I'll try to give a synopsis of your question. in there. So with that said, do want to congratulate Brandon. Brandon did pass. Oh, so no, don't worry about it, Brandon. I just have to make sure because then I'll get inundated with questions and I can't let. We'll have open question day here on Coffee Hour maybe one day where I'll just answer code questions for an hour. But I got this part lessons, part 1, part 2, part 3. I got to finish today, so I don't want to be getting in down a rabbit hole because I got to follow these lessons that I have set up. Jeff gives me a schedule and I have to follow these lessons. Anyway, but I'll touch on your question. Don't worry. See, that's how easy it is for me to get off track on from where I was at. Because I don't even remember what the hell I was just now talking about because I got off track on what I was talking about. See, I got attention deficit disorder and it's so easy. That's why I say it's hard for me to do that on a day that I got lessons because I can get down a rabbit hole and very quickly and it takes me off and we only have an hour roughly. Sometimes I go over, but that type of thing. So anyway, point being, when you're learning the code, it's important because we get so used to doing things that we don't think about the aspects of that everything has some kind of code wrapped around it. And so that's why it's so important to stay up on the code because at any given point, the code mingles with our knowledge that we're learning in the field. So why do we stay sharp with the code? Why do we keep on it? Because it's our profession. It's what we do for a living. Just like a doctor. A doctor needs to be up on surgical techniques, needs to be up on the latest technologies, latest equipment, latest advances. We're the same way in our profession, right? Same concept. All right, let's do some shout outs real quick so I can go on and get into today's lesson. We're starting out with working space, but we're in services and electrical equipment, and we're in part 3 today of this episode. So if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, make sure you go back and watch it. But congratulations, Brandon, passed the knowledge portion. Brandon, for those that are asking, I hope you don't mind me, Brandon, because everybody was invested in it yesterday, did not pass the calculations portion. And that is okay. I tell people all the time that when I helped Texas change to a 2-part test, the concept was I didn't want people to be able to get past that threshold and skip the calculations and just do the knowledge and get their license, and then they'd still be struggling. So by breaking it up, and I helped incorporate this quite a few years ago, in breaking it into 2 exams. One is if you pass one, you're done. You don't have to take that one again. So the knowledge one for Brandon's out of the way. All that's left is calculation. And the good news is the report shows when where to study. Okay, services and service calculations. Again, I wouldn't worry so much about separately derived systems because you probably only have one question on that. But services and understanding service calculations in 230, understanding the basics of any element of a service calculation, feeder calculations, the basics of that. And it's pretty simple. We have a lot of videos that are on those type of things. D-Rating Demystified is a must-watch video. If you haven't watched that, it's a must-watch. And then we have 8 hours of calculations over on Fast Track's Tube that you can watch. It's an 8-hour calculation video. A must-watch that. And it shows you that you're weak on branch circuit calculations. Other than that, you did very well. So you more than can make up for what's needed by just focusing on your branch circuit feeder calculations and service calculations. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on separately derived system because, again, probably going to have one question on that, if any. So, and remember, you're not going to get the same questions twice. Okay, they're going to mix them up a little bit. So get more proficient on the service calculations, get more proficient. And in our program, Fast Track's program, folks, it's unit 8, 11, and 13. Those are the ones that you want to make sure that before you leave those units, you feel comfortable. Okay, even if you make up your own questions, feel comfortable because that's the ones that are focused on calculations. Okay. So Brandon, be very proud of yourself. The lookup part is typically what people struggle with. Calculations. Everybody's going to struggle with calculations, right? That type of scenario. Just remember now that the knowledge is out of the way. So the stress on that. So now you can just focus on calculations, and now you also know the area where you need a more focused study. And I would spend more time on service calcs, service applications, branch circuit and feeder calcs. Definitely go watch D-Rating Demystified if you haven't already watched it to understand D-Rating, adjustment and corrections, and things like that. Make sure you definitely watch our video series on secondary conductors and feeder. That is over in our Fast Track's Tube. You just got to search for it. Okay, transformers, search for transformers. Watch those videos over there. It'll answer all your questions for secondary conductors, 10-foot rule, 25-foot rule, all those type of things. And then just understand the branch circuit aspects of calculations. Okay, when to use 125%, when to use the reciprocal 80, how to do the protection, what's a continuous loads, then you're going to be okay. And by getting the knowledge out of the way, now you can focus specifically on the aspects of calculation. Okay. So again, at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. Yeah, you got to take it again, but it's okay. That's typical for Texas. Many states that have those, what's called double testing or dual testing. Many times people just nail it on the first go, but it's okay. It's okay to take it again. Trust me. I know some very well-to-do electricians who've had to take the test multiple times. I'm just saying. It doesn't matter. Again, we go to a doctor or we go to a lawyer, the first question we don't ask them, and we really don't have to ask them, is where were you in your law degree? Were you the top of your class or the bottom of your class? All right, doctor, before you go cutting on me, were you the top of your class or the bottom of your class? Nobody cares. They got the degree. That's it. They got the license. That's it. That's all we care about, okay, is getting it, and you will get it. Let's see here. Paul, good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend. Tom, good morning. I'll review your other unit, your last unit sometime today, Tom, I promise you, for your CMECP, but you're well within your time frame, so you're good. OSHA, yep, I did OSHA 30 many years ago and an OSHA instructor years ago. Talk about put you to sleep, that's for sure. What's up, Adam? Glad to have you here, Adam. Jonathan? There you go. Let's see here. Brandon, I see your question. I do have your question. I just wanted to set the tone. Don't apologize. I just need to let people know that you can ask me any question you want, but if it's a real detailed question, we don't want it to bogart our lesson. I might have an open chat. If y'all all vote for it, send me it at paulabernathy.com. If y'all want to have a day of the week that we just have open questions where you can bring your questions and I'll just hit them one at a time for the hour, let me know. I'm more than happy to incorporate that in the week somewhere. I don't have a problem with doing that. I just don't want to take it away from our lesson. Or you can also send your questions to paulabernathy.com as well. Good morning. Happy to have you here. Code Nerd Green, Manny, thank you. Good morning, Crypto. Hello. There's a question that the exam asks. Okay, make sure you know exactly and not paraphrase or assume. That's the problem a lot of times with people that come out of tests and write questions. You need to write them down right away, because if there's any variable in there that I can't answer, because people tend to not remember every piece of it, and I cannot assume something that I don't know every little element of the question. So just keep that in mind. Good morning, Nepo. David, good morning. My CMEC from down in Florida. There you go. Best place to be in the morning, having that coffee, having a discussion. Good morning, Terrence. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Rob Nickman. Rob, you also should have been contacted by the vendor for the estimating course yesterday. Hopefully, check your email. What's up, Daryl? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Charlie, hopefully you and the family is okay. And welcome. Frank's in the house. Good morning. Definitely Beatbox Friday. All right, that's all y'all get for that moment. Let's see. What's up, Red Dog?
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
Hola. Buenos dias. What's up, Nepo? Losing the edge. yeah, really. Yeah. No, I wasn't paying attention, and it had absolutely nothing to do with electrical. But if I had some electrical tape with me, I probably would have sealed that sucker off with electrical tape. That's for sure. Been there, done that. What's up, David? Glad to have you here, my friend. Let's see here. Charlie, you will like this. My mother used Trade Hog because at RV Park where they were changing electrical outlets on a service. Did it work for her? Did she use Trade Hog? Oh, that's cool. Good morning from North Alabama, Tara. Glad to have you here. Thank you. Erie, fast track student as well. Thanks to have you here. Thanks for your being here. Alex, good morning. Glad to have you here. No sorry needed, Brandon. I will look at your question here in a minute. Peter, good morning. Glad to have you here. Charlie said it actually helped. There you go. Trade Hog, win for the hog. There you go. So let's see here. That pesky rabbit. There you go. Cray Cray's in the house. Cray Cray from Nashville, Music City. Glad to have you here. Angel, I am doing well, blessed. Couldn't ask for it. The sun came up. I woke up. So I couldn't ask for anything better. There you go, Steve. There you go. Time for a test, and he's saying he's saving it for me. Okay, cool. That's awesome, and that's the best way to do it. If you're studying for the exam and he's going to save it for you, then you can do it after you achieve that milestone. And then, boy, estimating course. And it is. I'm going to tell you right now, Rob. There is no better person to learn estimating from than Steve. Flat out, no better person to learn estimating from. So that was a giveaway that we did last quarter. And it's going to be a treat. Now, John Moser won the estimating software, so John should have been reached out to John as well for the software. In fact, I saw the email with the instructions. So you got to follow all those instructions, John, to get it loaded properly. But Steve can help you. But that estimating course is going to be awesome. So you'll enjoy that when you get to it. There you go. There you go. Shout outs and love from Brandon. And you will get it, Brandon. And you'll be better for it. Now that you're going to spend extra time focusing on calculations, you're just going to get better. And that's the thing about code is the more now that you can focus and you can be hyper focused on where you know your weaknesses are, then it's so much easier to be focused. And now you're going to have to be relaxed because you're like, dude, now I'm just dealing with calc. And the thing about calcs is that the calcs are something that are tangible, right? It's not worrying about a code question and you're wondering how somebody asked the question and whether you're in the same mind meld as they are to answer a question. Nah, with calculations, it's different. It's tangible. It's right there. They're asking you a calc and you have to answer it. And again, it's hard to mess with the numbers. And one of the tips that I always do in calculations is sometimes you might leave a little something off and you're not 100% exact, but you pick the best possible answer, and that's going to be the answer because you could leave out a small little variable, like maybe doing a calculation where you're in a dwelling and you're looking for the largest motor and you forget that 25%, and you're like, well, I didn't get the exact answer, but you got close enough because you forgot that 25%. Okay, but you still were close to the answer, and that 25% probably is not going to be far off, but you can pick the best possible answer and you still get the question right. Of course, I'm trying to be a perfectionist as you would be. So you're trying to get that right answer, but you don't let it bog you down, okay? Especially on an exam, that type of thing. Now, it could be that on a calculation when, Brandon, you ran out of time. Maybe it's you overanalyzed. Maybe you used the three-wave method for the knowledge part, and maybe you lost track when it came to the calculations. This is a time for everybody out there when you're doing an exam is to remember that you can get lost in the moment. So you have to reevaluate when you go from one test to another and recoup and say, okay, I need to do this over again and apply the three waves and apply the methods, things like that. Now, it's a little different for calculations when you're doing a three-wave because you need to give yourself a little more time in that first wave because you still have to do a calculation for everything. So be around. And in Texas, the calculations are based on 1, 2, or 3 steps. And that's the complexity of the question. So if it's a simple Ohm's law question, it's 1 step. If it's a question where you have to solve something to be able to solve something else, that's like a 2-step question, that type of thing. And the point hierarchy is different based on those type of questions. So 1-step questions are easy, but they're going to be lower point values than a 2-step question or something like that. Okay. What's Mike? Glad to have you here. I am doing good. What's up, Joseph? From up in New Jersey's in the house. Glad to have you here. David, glad to have you here. Jim, glad to have you here, Jim. Welcome to Coffee Hour. Let's see. She was right. Look, Charlie says they did use it, and she was right, and they were wrong. That's what I'm talking about. Putting it in their face. Good morning, Val. Glad to have you here. What is up, Anselmo? I guess I'm saying that right. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Ryan's in the house. Good morning, Ryan. Glad to have you here. Over on Fast Tracks Tube. Awesome. What's up, Leroy? Glad to have you here, my friend. Good morning. Edward, glad to have you here, my friend. Let's see here. Who else we got up in here? Let's see here. Titan says, I took the estimating class from Best Bid a couple years ago, and it was great. Get familiar with using Excel if you're not already. Let's see there. It's a must, definitely. And I've learned that it's important for me to understand basic functions in Excel. It is actually quite handy once you learn it. Seems daunting at first, but it's not. Okay. What's up? And you can get cheat sheets for that. And you can ask TradeHog to give you over the Office Hog, you can ask it to give you a cheat sheet for Excel shortcuts. For those that have TradeHog, you can go in and use the Office Hog and ask it for a shortcut or cheat sheet for Excel, and it will create one for you. Gotta love artificial intelligence. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna help us. What's up, Kendra? Sharing the love back at you. There you go. Appreciate you. David, thanks for joining. Glad to have you here. All right, let's get into today's lesson. Again, I love living vicariously through you folks. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and we'll pop it up, or I'll acknowledge you during the lesson. But I appreciate all of you, and thanks for joining. One quick announcement that Jeff sent over is that he is completing. What we're going to be adding is another module, or we'll be adding on our website a flashcard program. So we're creating some. People have asked us to create electronic flashcards. Now we're not yet sure whether we're going to incorporate. We are a business, by the way, so we don't know whether we're going to incorporate it in existing programs, because you already have flashcards that are built into your Fast Tracks program, which are in the module at the very bottom. Okay, the database of questions, database of code questions. The flashcards are in there, but they're not specific to like articles and certain things that we like when it comes to flashcards. So Jeff has been working on a flashcard module that'll be for sale on our website. I don't know the price. It's obviously not going to be expensive. And again, it helps promote us, and hopefully you want to promote us. So if you're studying and you want these flashcards, the module, I don't know when, it's probably in the next couple of days or so that Jeff will release it, and I'll review it and approve it. I usually approve everything that Jeff does. And it's going to be really trying to focus on things you need to make sure that you're able to just quote out articles and sections of importance and tables and things like that. But I can't imagine it'll be under $10. I can't imagine it'd be any more than that for the flashcard. And the way that he's got it in the schedule is that there'll be other flashcards coming out, a series. So it's going to be a series of different flashcards. So people that want those. And of course, we'll put those on the wheel and give away a flashcard. We're going to call it the flashcard database. And so it's going to be on our website probably in the next couple of days. At least the first module will be out, and that type of thing. Now, at some point, maybe I will add those to the existing Fast Tracks courses, but you already have flashcards built in, so I don't. Again, we are a business, so we gotta make a living somehow. You know what I'm saying? All right. So anyway, there you go. So again, thank you all, and let's go and get into today's lesson. So I just want to give an announcement about those electronic flashcard modules that'll be coming out, and you'll see us talk about them, and I will add them to the wheel, and you can purchase them on our website. It kind of be like the 100-question exam that we have online that you can purchase if you want it. Although I don't tell anybody in our Fast Tracks program to purchase extra databases or extra exams, or even on our mobile device, there's one there. You don't have to, because the databases are built into your Fast Tracks program, right? Already included. But these are going to be separate flashcards, okay? All right, let's get into today's lesson. What's up, Greg? I see you in the house. All right, so we're shifting gears now. We're continuing on our journey with services and electrical equipment. We're moving into working space. Hopefully this is something that you are intimate with. You understand the working spaces and working clearances and all this type of thing. There's a few things in here that people get confused with, so we'll try to touch on those, but we're going to cover today. We're going to be looking at these type of topics. So if you have any questions, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Before I do that, hold on. Okay, now I might have to show this multiple times. Okay, Brandon says, a separately derived system of 480 volts on the primary side and 12208 on the secondary, and a 200 amp overcurrent protective device on the primary side. Oops, put it back up. What size supply side binding jumper? Primary side, what size binding jumper? What is the damn it. What is the minimum size SSBJ be needed on the secondary side? Okay, so the secondary side, the SSBJ is going to be sized based on the derived conductors from the secondary. Okay, so they're going to be derived from the secondary. And so if we were to go to look at those applications, and I'm not sure I have, I can actually do a detailed example on that. So rather than try to do that here, Brandon, I think it's better if I were to show you an example. And I'm not sure that I have a great example here that I can show you. I think somebody already bought one up, but there is an example that I have in our program that it would be nice to share with you. And I think it'll actually illustrate it a lot better that way. But at any rate, so first thing is, okay, so you're talking about the secondary. So here, by the way, just for code reference, before I get off on it for you, before I send you that, Brandon, or if you post it over on the mobile app, I can put it there for you. But this is, so, oops, sorry about that. Didn't go far enough. My bad. Oops. Okay, so 250.102 is talking about grounded conductors, bonding conductors, and jumpers. And it should say bonding jumpers, but that's how it works, okay? So supply side applications, all right? And here you got supply side applications, all right? And it depends on, okay, I just wanted to show you this here. Let me, if I can pop this up. Okay, you see right here that it also talks about the system bonding jumper and supply side bonding jumpers. Okay, so this table in 250.102 is based on the ungrounded conductors that are coming from the supply side. Okay, or actually the secondary conductors up from the transformer up to the actual equipment. All right. So again, so here. These again, this is different. Okay. All right. So we would be doing that based on 250.102C1. Okay. That's where we'd be basing this on. All right. So also, when we go back to, I'm giving you different areas that I will share with you. Here's your separately derived system right here. Okay. All right. So when you get down here, so this is a system. So here is system bonding jumper requirements. Okay. So here is your supply side jumper requirements. I'm giving you where to go, Brandon, to look. So this is in 250.30. Okay. And you're going to be looking at A because you're dealing with a grounded system, right? And then you're going to go down and you'll be looking right here. So it says if the source of a separately derived system and the first disconnect are located in separate enclosures. So that's the reason why you're running a supply side bonding jumper up to it. Okay. Then it says that the supply side bonding jumper shall be installed with the circuit conductors from the source enclosure, that's transformer, to the first disconnect mean enclosure, which is up to the disconnect. Okay. All right. It says a supply side bonding jumper shall not be required to be larger than the derived ungrounded conductors. Okay, whatever those derived, by the way, Brandon, is the conductors that are being supplied from the secondary. It's just a fancy way of saying that. So derived means that they're originated from the secondary side of the actual transformer. Okay, and of course this says the supply side bonding jumpers shall be permitted to be a non-flexible metal raceway type or a wire or bus type. So in your case, if they're asking you that question, they want to know what the wire type is because it could be a piece of EMT, that's a non-flexible metal raceway. Could be a rigid, nobody does that to transformer, by the way, okay? But it's gotta be non-flexible. So that's why you can't use flex or FMC and use that as a supply side bonding jumper in itself. You would have to put the wire type in there, okay? Now, when it comes to sizing, it says the supply side bonding jumper of the wire type shall comply with 250.102C, and that's why I looked at that first, because you need to be familiar with that table, okay? Based on the size of the derived ungrounded conductors, okay? So in that scenario is you need to know what the size is of those secondary conductors, okay? Now, based on your question, Let me go back to, let's see here. Let's go back to the chat, this part right here. So based on your question that it says that is based on a 200 amp on the primary, what is the size? So what you haven't given me is you're leaving out some information because I need to know what I know what it is at 200 on the primary, right? But I don't know, I'm gonna have to do a whole bunch of math to determine what's the size of this transformer. You didn't give me the KVA. And so if it's 200 on the primary, I don't know, there's details missing for me to be able to tell you what's the size of the secondary. Right now, I can do some math and calculate if it's a 200 amp overcurrent on the primary, then we're assuming that this is a primary and secondary protection. So it can be up to a certain value, up to 250% on the primary and 125% on the secondary. But I don't know what the transform is. So it's almost like something in your question is being left out. But the key elements here is that you need to know where you go, and it's based on the secondary conductors from the transformer to that disconnect, okay, or the panel with the breaker in it. Those derived conductors are what's going to stipulate the size of the supply side bonding jumper. Okay, so that's to get you started. Okay, now if you have more variables in your question, transformer size, I have a hard time believing that you remembered that exact question without any of those other variables. Something has to be missing in that question. Something I believe has to be missing. But do me a favor, send that question to me at paulabernathy.com. I will try to break it down and come up with an assumption of what size KVA the transformer would be based on that 200 amps of overcurrent protection on the primary side, and come up with scenarios, that type of thing. So that's the best I can do for you here on the fly. All right, Brandon. All right, let's get back on the working space. Christopher, I see you. Miles, I see you in the house. Let's see here. All right, so let me get back to where I was on the question, on everybody's shout outs. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so the minimum working clearance. Let's talk about that. So minimum working space height for equipment operating at 1,000 volts nominal or less to ground. Remember, this is always to ground. Okay, so when people are using the tables in 110.26, they forget that it's to ground. Okay, that's what they forget. All right, so not phase to phase. Okay, so the minimum working height for equipment operating at 1,000 volts nominal or less to ground and likely to require examination. Okay, important. Likely to require examination, adjustment, servicing, or maintenance while it's energized is 6.5 feet. Okay, so 110.26A3. So we're going to go look at the code and get here. So let's get real quick back. Okay, so here we go, 110A. Okay, so here's our working space, A, and we're going to start with A3, which is this one here, height of the working space. So the working space shall be clear and extend from the grade, floor, or platform, okay, because so it could be up on a platform. I do get this question a lot. People say, if I have a stairwell and I have a landing, can I have a panel on a landing? And the answer to that is yes, as long as you got the working space, as long as you have the clearance in front of it, yes. Can you have it over the stairs? No, you can't. Can I have it on the landing? You could. Kind of a dumb place to put it, but could you? Sure. All right, that type of thing. Not the best options. It's not the best place that I would put it, but can you? Yeah. What's up, Skyattle? What's up, Carlos? Glad to have you here. Good morning. Good morning, Jonathan. Glad to have you here. All right, so it's clear and extend from grade, floor, platform to a height of 6.5 feet, or the height, okay, or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. Okay. So it's going to be a minimum of 6.5 feet, okay, up from the platform, from grade up, okay, or to the height of equipment, whichever is greater. Now, the thing to remember about that is these are just little things that I throw out. You do have height requirements, for example, on a switch, okay, especially if it's used in a panel board like this, in a panel enclosure. you switch, then you have issues of 6'7" to the center of the throw. So that can play a role as well in the height. Okay, so these things, that's what's so important about the code, right? Is it not just do you have this working space requirement? That's for you to be able to work in it safely, okay? Be able to get to the equipment and safely work in it for you as an electrical worker. But you have other requirements that have to commingle with it, and that is being aware that you have overcurrent device height limitations. And without some exceptions, it's generally going to be 6'7" to the center throw, things like that. So as an electrician, you got to remember all these little things. And that's why we get the big bucks, right? That's why the electricians have to learn something. So that's why it's one thing to go through and just do your daily task blindly and realize I don't need no code. I don't need to know no stinking code. That's the difference between an apprentice or somebody that's what we call a apprenticeorus who's been working in the trade for 25 years and never went and got their license. They're just doing something repetitive. When you step up and go get your license and test your skills, and once you get that license, the learning really begins because now you're responsible to learn these things. And you'll realize that there's so many different things that intertwine with the NEC, and it impacts what you do every day. And again, I understand that sometimes I turn people off when I say, hey, you've been doing this for 20 years, you don't have a license, and you say, Paul, don't be hating on us. I'm just saying, dude, step up, get the license, get it for you, okay? That type of thing. And if you're in a state that doesn't have licensure, then get contractor's license or take an ICC exam or do something. Become a CMECP. Test yourself. Continually learn. Okay? That's the process. That's what we're in right now. All right. So it says also, while we're here, this might as well knock this out because we're here anyway. It says, within the height requirements of this section, other equipment or support structures, such as a concrete pad associated with the electrical installation or located above or below electrical equipment, shall be permitted to extend not more than 6 inches beyond the front of the electrical equipment. Okay, so even if you put this on a pad, let's say you have switch gear, and we're installing the switch gear on a pad. And again, you're usually not responsible for that, right? You're the electrician. You're going to come wire it up, but it gets put on a pad mount or it gets put on an elevated pad. Maybe it's in a basement area of a piece of a room, and it gets put on this elevated pad. That can be a problem if they didn't design the pad properly and the pad sticks out more than 6 inches. Then it becomes a trip hazard. And so anybody trying to work on this little ledge in the equipment could trip and fall off or something like that. So they could have extended it out. I've seen these pads where they make a pad and they elevate it. They put the switch gear on it, and there's 12 inches in front of it, and then it drops off. Well, that would be in the space. That would be a problem because that's extending more than 6 inches out, and that becomes a trip hazard, that type of thing. Okay, so you're working on it, something happens, you step back, you're not paying attention to where you're standing, and you're assuming that you have this clearance, and then you end up falling. And that could probably, the fall could end up being worse than anything else you're dealing with, right? That type of thing. So that's so important to be aware of that. What's up, Fernando? Good morning. All right, now you do have some exceptions to this height requirement. So there are some exceptions. Again, meter sockets that stick out beyond the equipment, that's okay. Again, there's an allowance for meter sockets that extend out, okay? And then there is for existing dwellings, there is an allowance for that height requirement as long as the panel board doesn't exceed 200 amps, then it's going to allow you to have a reduced working clearance, but it's for an existing dwelling unit. So maybe you're doing something that was a service change or whatever, and there wasn't the height clearance there, and you're going in there and you're going to be changing something out. You can't have an inspector come and say, oh, no, I need 6.5 feet. And you're like, dude, I don't have 6.5 feet. So there's an exception there for an existing dwelling application where you may be doing something to the equipment and they can't come in there and say, oh, what are you supposed to do? Relocate everything just to get your 6.5 feet? No. So that's why we have the exception in there. Okay. Makes sense? Okay. Next, it says working space illumination must be provided for all indoor installations of service equipment, panel boards, and so on. Supplemental illumination are not required where the workspace is illuminated by adjacent light source. So that means you may have a light source that's here for another piece of equipment, but it also provides illumination to the service equipment, then that is okay, right? And that is 110.26, as we always do. We can go look at the NEC. So 110.26, when we're talking about D, it's right here, illumination, okay? So here's the illumination requirement right here. It says illumination shall be provided for all working spaces about service equipment, switchboard, switchgear, enclosed panel boards, or motor control centers installed indoors. Controlled by automatic means shall not be permitted to control all illumination within that working space. So, I mean, it can't be the kind of thing where the lighting only comes on when you got motion in there. Because what if you're working on something, you're opening up the equipment, and you're kind of necessarily blocked away, and then the motion sensor doesn't pick you up, and all of a sudden you're knee deep in something, and then the power goes off. That's not going to work, okay? So can't do that. Let's see here. It says, additional lighting outlets shall not be required where the workspace is illuminated by an adjacent light source or as permitted in 210.70A1 exception, okay, for switch receptacles, okay? So you could have something that's switched, you're plugging into it, that thing like that. So key takeaway here is that you need to have illumination, and whether it's something that's adjacent that's going to provide that illumination, or you directly add illumination to the area where you're going to be working on your service equipment, panel boards, enclosed panel boards, anything like that. So you need to have that illumination. So that should go without saying. That's something that you look at every day. And you got to be careful because engineers don't always think this way in some cases. So they might put a piece of equipment somewhere, but they may not have thought about the illumination there. So it may be way back around the corner, and so it may be adjacent, but it is not casting illumination onto the working area where the service equipment, switchgear, or that thing might be. So that can be a problem. So you might have to talk to the engineer about amending a drawing in order to add additional illumination, that type of thing. And you could have a local jurisdiction that has a lumen requirement. So they may do foot candle tests to make sure you have at least 1 foot candle or something during this area. You never know. Each jurisdiction can come up with their own thing. That's a safety thing, not necessarily NEC thing when it comes to the number of foot candles and all that kind of stuff, or lumens. That could be something that is imposed by the building official, the building inspector, and it may be very much germane to that area where they're working. So just always good to keep those things in mind. Engineers that are designing systems where switchgear would be, they should take that into consideration. But you know what? You never know. So again, as the electrician, you're the set of eyes in the field. You may see something that sparks and say, hey, wait a minute, we need to do something else. I am sure James sees that, Mr. Simplex, probably all the time, where the drawings say one thing and he's like, wait a minute, Jack. This is the real world. I'm here with boots on the ground. That dude's looking at a piece of paper. We need this to change, okay? Working space required by 110.26 must not be used for storage. Okay, so obviously, again, I can tell you what, this is probably, all of you probably break this rule in your garage. If you have a panel in your garage, you probably have crap stored in front of it right now. You know who you are. I do not, because I don't have a garage, right? But I have a utility room, and I'm going to plead the fifth on that. Just, I don't know. I'm going to say it's clear, but knowing my wife, and we are building a garage here soon, so she puts a lot of stuff in the storage room. I like to keep it clear, but I am going to plead the fifth on whether or not I walked in there with this camera and looked right now. I'm going to say it's clear, okay? That way I'm, not in trouble. All right. So that's that. Now, we're going to talk again about that what we read earlier in that 110.26 A3. So next is the maximum depth of associated equipment. Okay, so we talked about the working space, and we did not look at the table for the working space, but we will look at that a little bit deeper here in a second. But now let's talk about that with that maximum depth, what can actually be in that depth? Okay, what's up, Ryan? Good morning. Got your test on Tuesday. Good luck. We have all of our thoughts and prayers with you, my friend. You'll nail it. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay the course. All right, so let's look at here. So in an electrical installation, other associated equipment or support structures, such as concrete pads located above or below the electrical equipment, shall not extend more than 6 inches beyond the front of that electrical equipment. Now, when we say associated equipment, it could be a wireway, it could be a gutter, it could be support straps, Kindorf. It could be Kindorf with unistraps in it. It could be any of that type of stuff. There is a depth. We can't have it penetrate out into the working space more than 6 inches beyond the electrical equipment. This is a good example over here, and I always love this example. This is a 12-inch wide wireway, or excuse me, 12-inch deep wireway. Okay, and this is your enclosure right here. All right. So let's say this enclosure right here. Let's just say this is surface mounted. So this is 6 inches. So this cannot extend more than 6 inches in that space. Now we're going to look at the width of the space here in a minute. So this is important because I see transformers placed in front of panels all the time. In fact, I uploaded a picture from Costco. I saw one just a couple months ago walking in Costco. I was like, really? So anybody working on that panel's got to straddle that transformer. How did that ever pass? Hey, shout out to Charlottesville, Virginia. How did that pass, bro? I know those inspectors. Dude, how did that pass? I'm just saying. So anyway, that is what we got going on. So can't extend beyond it. So be careful where you place equipment, okay? Then that is, again, we covered that in 110.26a3. Now, meters that are installed in meter sockets shall be permitted to extend beyond the other equipment. So obviously the meter, the dome, the globe is going to extend out potentially past the front of the meter. And that's okay. That is when the exception number 3 allows it to stick out. And that is not going to be a problem. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the width of it and probably what we deal with most of the time when it comes to installing panels, enclosed panel boards, things like that. So the frontal workspace width, okay? Now, one of the things to remember is this is just not for what we see here on the screen, just for the panel. This can be, again, to that disconnect, okay, that you could have. So you have this clearance, okay? So when I read things like this and we show you illustrations, what I don't want you to get locked into is just the illustration, because this is electrical equipment. It's just easier to convey it and show it as a panel enclosure, okay? So, or a load center, okay? If you're putting it throughout a residential application, typically we can call it a load center. All right, so the frontal working space width of electric equipment must be greater of the width of the equipment or 30 inches, okay? That is 110.26a2. If you're in our Fast Tracks program, then you're always going to see these code references. You need to stop and go look at it, and then you come back to the course material. That's how the Fast Tracks works, okay? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, okay? That's how you do it. All right, so it is the width of the equipment or 30 inches, whichever is greater. So on switchgear, for example, it's probably going to be greater than 30 inches. So it's going to be the working clearance is going to be the width of the equipment. However, with a panel probably goes in a 14¼ stud bay, then basically you've got to worry about the 30 inches. Now, interesting, in a panel that you would put between, let's say in your studs, let's say we're putting it in a wall, so we're going to recess, I can put it anywhere in that 30 inches, right? So I can put it to the left of the 30 inches, and this is your full 30. I can put it in the center and have my 30. Or I can put it to the right and have my 30. Okay? Anywhere you want to put it in that 30. You know, like I said, if it's switchgear, then it's going to be greater than 30. So you have the width of the equipment. So the width of the equipment straight out, okay? And we haven't really talked about the total distance yet, but all of that working space is for your safety. And it has to be clear, okay? Nothing stored there, nothing in that space. It again, as we saw, it goes up to 6.5 feet or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. This is where you're going to be working. Okay? We don't want you to get trapped in something, fall against something, get wedged in something, get locked onto something. We know you all follow safe practices, but just in case, this is for your safety. Okay? Now, Section 110.26 does not stipulate that the panel or the equipment be located in the center of the workspace. It can be located anywhere, like I said, anywhere. So if we're talking a panel like this, which is probably like a 14 1/4, then it can be anywhere in that 30 inches. But you have to have that 30 inches space, okay? Or greater if the equipment's greater. Now, the working space must always permit at least a 90-degree opening of the equipment door, okay? So when you're moving it to the right over here, this is not an issue. You move it to the left, you have to make sure that if you put it here to the left, that I can at least open up that door 90 degrees. I can't have anything that impedes the ability to open that door, okay? A panel or equipment can share the working space with other equipment associated with the electrical installation. So what I mean by that is I could have two, okay? I could have two panels in there and both of them be in the same space and have total 30, and I could have two panels side by side and they can cover that 30, okay? So again, you can have a panel which can share the working space with other electrical equipment in that working space. Now, the other thing to remember, that in that working space, I can have other electrical equipment, raceways. I can, if they're germane to the electrical installation, okay? Obviously, there's certain things I can't have in there, right? That type of scenario. But I could have other equipment mounted in this, on this wall, in this space that's electrically related, as long as it doesn't extend the equipment more than what we saw a second ago, which is 6 inches, okay? All right, so let's kind of depicting, now we're gonna talk about, we've looked at the width, we've looked at the height, now we're gonna look at the depth. And believe it or not, this is where people really, on exams, they really screw this up because of the reading of the words, right? They read the words and they get screwed up with how they read the words. So let's look at it real quick. It says table 110.26A1 specifies working space depth requirements in the direction of access to live parts. It's a way of saying, look, I've got to go work on this equipment, so I'm going to be facing and working on these live parts, okay? It says the distance is measured from the live parts if exposed, okay, or from the front or opening if it's enclosed. So you're going to be measured. So if it's designed to be an enclosed panel, and again, we should also mention that not all panels will have a cover on it. Okay, there are some that do not have covers, and there's a lot that integrate a cover. Okay, then so the breakers may be accessible open, or they may be behind a cover. Right. So either way, we have to make sure that we have this working. So if it's intended to have a cover on it, then we're going to measure this distance from the cover if it's enclosed. Okay, if the electrical parts for some reason are exposed, then we're measuring from the exposed parts, okay? I will say that in 99.9999% of you guys spacing, especially on exams, the intent is they want you to measure, if it's a panel board question, they want you to measure it from the cover, okay? The distance out, all right? So that is 110.26A1. So the minimum working space depth for equipment operating at 150 volts nominal or less to ground, okay, is 3 feet. Regardless of the conditions found in table 110.26A1. There's three different conditions. There's a condition 1, condition 2, condition 3. It has to do with whether or not you have live parts opposite you, other words, behind you, whether you have grounded parts behind you, or you have nothing behind you. You have three different conditions which can affect the working space depth. Well, the good news for most of what you guys do, if you're dealing with 12240, the 120 is definitely falls into the 150 volts or less to ground category. So you're going to have a minimum of 3 foot working space that you've got to have, right? What people get confused with is they see 120, 240 volt and they think that it's based on 240. It's not. It's based on the 120 aspect to ground. Now, if you're dealing with a 277, 480, that's different because the 277 is more than 150 volts or less to ground. So it's important that you understand how that table works, okay? So I always like to show this because, believe it or not, I do get people that will get this and screw this up on an exam. So I just like to show this to people all the time. It says nominal voltage to ground. So in your case, if it's a condition 1, which again probably is most of your applications that you deal in, Unless you're in commercial, industrial, then you're probably going to run into these other conditions. But generally, you're probably a condition 1 guy or girl. And so, again, it's 0 to 150 to ground. So at 122.40, you're using the 120, not the 240. I have a lot of people do that. Now, if it's just a condition 1, then you can't really get the question wrong. It's 3 feet, 3 feet, or 3 feet. What happens on exams is it's usually going to tell you it's a concrete wall behind you, or there's something that's grounded behind you, and that means you had to jump into a condition 2. Well, if it's a 122.40 volt, even under condition 2, it's still 3 feet. But what they're looking for is it may be a 277 480 application, and in that scenario, it would be at 151 through 600 to ground, and that would be 3 foot 6 inches based on the condition. So you have to be careful about the condition. And so if you're studying for an electrical exam, all you want to do is be cognizant of the difference of condition. And so here's the first condition right here, and you can barely see it. And my screen's not going to let me show it all, so I'll read them to you if you have your code book. The first condition says, expose live parts on one side of the working space and no live parts or grounded parts on the other side of the working space. Or expose live parts on both sides of the working space that are effectively guarded by insulating material. So you could have live parts as long as it's covered by insulating material. Probably not the case for most of us, right? So a normal panel, if you have nothing on the other side of it, you have gypsum board or whatever, another wall that's on that side, whatever, then basically it's a 3 foot working clearance. Okay, that's condition 1. All right, condition 2, which y'all can't see, and I can show you by scrolling down a little bit down. I can do it this way. So here's condition 2. It says, expose live parts on one side of the working space, okay, which again is the space we're working on, okay, and you might be opening the panel. You're going to have, exposed live parts and grounded parts on the other side of the working space, okay. So I might have another panel or I have some other grounded parts or some other equipment behind me in this working space, right? And it says, if it's concrete, brick, or tile walls, they shall be considered grounded. So you have to be very, very cognizant on what's behind you, okay? So you're basically looking at the space. You're at your live parts, where you're going to be working. What's going on behind me? What condition am I in, okay? All right, so if I have exposed live parts on one side of the working space and I have grounded parts on the other side of the working space, all right, that's a condition 2. All right, and again, concrete, brick, those type of things. Now, condition 3, exposed live parts on both sides of the working space. Okay, then that's going to be a situation where we'll be in condition 3. On an exam, they have to give you the conditions. They have to tell you what's on the other side of the working space. Otherwise, you don't know how to apply these. So for an exam, don't stress it. Okay, they have to give you this information. It's no assumptions here. They have to give it to you. But in the real world, you need to take a good check of your working space. Okay, now I'll tell you my opinion on this. If I have drywall's on top of the metal studs, it's insulated. It's a drywall. Drywall is not conductive. I would not consider that anything other than a condition 1 working space. Also, I will tell you, if I was in a room, okay, and I have obviously ex-infamous doesn't know the rules. So if I have a working space on one side, a lot of parts, and I'm looking at the other side, and my wall is 20 feet away, then it is not technically to me on the other side of the working space. It's 20 feet away. It's not germane to my working space. So I could have a concrete wall that's 15 feet, 20 feet away. To me, that does not, you're okay. I'm just teasing you. I could not have, you should submit all questions to paulabernathy.com because we're on topic today. But if people think that they want me to do a Q&A once a week, that they can ask just random questions, I'm more than happy to do that, but it's all going to be based on vote. So y'all go over to paulabernathy.com and let me know your vote if you think I should have a Q&A day where you can ask any questions. It could get boring if you don't have any questions. So, but anyway, so again, if I have a concrete wall and it's 15, 20 feet away and I'm working on a panel over here, I'm not going to consider that, in my opinion, I'm not going to consider that to be a condition 2. You know what I'm saying? It's too far away. It's not in that touch potential for me. I could not get to it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. There you go. What's my favorite color? Shut up. All right. So at the end of the day, that's what we're dealing with. Okay. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Let's get back to the lesson. All right, installation. You say you think there would be many questions, but I used to do Q&A, and I used to do the Wednesday night sessions, and you could hear crickets when I'd say, what questions do you folks have? It was like, it would be like this here. It'd be like, I'm just saying, I'm come from experience. All right. So if you do have Q&A night, or a day, or morning, or coffee hour Q&A day, pick a day of the week. Okay, send it to paulabernathy.com. Let me know which day you think it should be, and we'll do an informal poll that way. And then, where was it? See how easily I get distracted? Anyway, well, I got ADHD. I can tell you what. People ask me. People say, "Was it easy to get you to talk to an inspector and get them off track when I was inspecting?" No, because I purposely would not have discussions with people until we solved the issue. So when I was a supervisor or I was the engineer and I'd go to a job site for a specific problem, I would not listen to random stories. I would go there, and some people would think I was an asshole because that's my process. I would go and say, they would say, Paul, I know you're an educator. Hey, Paul, I got this. I'd go, not until we're done with this situation, okay? Not until we're done. And I would laser focused on the situation that was at hand. That's also why I always kept a notebook for my thoughts, because to me, ADHD has been a blessing in helping me be able to multitask. I know that sounds weird, but it's also a curse. When anywhere I go, I get inundated with questions, believe it or not. Anywhere I go, it's just inundated with questions when I'm in the field. So I got to stay focused. So for me, it was like making sure that when I went to the site, I'm going to make sure we tackled this issue. And so I stayed with the blinders on until we solved it. Okay. And then I'm open to questions. It's just, I had no choice. I had to do it. That type of thing. It can be a blessing and it can be a curse, that type of thing. I don't think attention deficit disorder for me is a disability. For me, it's just how I rationale my day, okay? Let's see here. Okay, so installation and working space requirements for equipment operating over 1,000 volts are found in 110.30 through 110.34. So if you're looking for saying, well, hey, Paul, what do I have? The situation where I'm sitting there going, wow. Also, TradeHog is great, folks, for asking questions because TradeHog can give you answers and I don't have to answer them, okay? So that's the beauty of TradeHog. Anyway, probably not as good as me, toot my own horn there, whoop, whoop. But it is it is a good, artificial intelligence can't take the place of pure knowledge. I'm just saying, y'all know that. All right, so if you do happen to deal with an over 1,000 volts and you want to know what working clearance is, then you're going to go look at 110.30 through 110.34 for those that are interested in that, okay? All right, let's see here. Yes, you can send us questions. We can do not do the questions on the comments, though, on the course. That is not the proper way. That's for comments on the program, okay? You need to do that using the Fast Tracks Interact that's built into the program if you're a Fast Track student. Use Fast Tracks Interact. It's built into the course. Lower right-hand corner, you see the little blue window or the little blue chat box. That's what you use, not the comments section in the course. Because I answer those, but it could be delayed because I don't always check those. Those are just comments to the course, that type of thing. That should be done in your Fast Tracks Interact. Or you could send me a question to paulabernathy.com is the other way, okay? All right, so now let's go on and get into our dedicated equipment space. This is different, okay? So there's two parameters. We have our working space, width, depth, height, right? And then we have what's called dedicated equipment space, okay? This is the space for our equipment, and that is the depth of the equipment and the width of the equipment And this space is only dedicated to our electrical equipment, nothing else. I don't want no plumbing lines going through there. I don't want gas lines going through there. I can have other electrical lines running through there, but I can't have anything that is foreign to the electrical system running through that. So that's the first place we start with that premise, okay? So the space equal to the width and depth of the equipment and extending from the floor to a height of 6 feet above the equipment or to the structural ceiling. So you may not have 6 feet above your equipment. You might only have 4 feet above your equipment, right? Depending on the ceiling. So if it's structural or the framing members that create the structural, then that's where you have to have that dedicated space would go up to that. But if the high ceiling, for example, then it can go up to 6 feet above the equipment, the footprint of the equipment, whether it's switch gear, whether it's a panel board enclosure, it has to have that clearance above it. Okay, we're talking indoor right now. Okay, so indoor application. There is a rule for outdoor, but right now we're indoor. Okay, so as you see over here, this just happens to show a panel board enclosure. Okay, that's just the example of the picture it shows. Okay, so here's the width and there's the depth. Goes up 6 feet. Okay, it's kind of like extending it all the way up to 6 feet above or to the structural ceiling. Okay, there you go. So there you go. And so a dropped, suspended, or similar ceiling that does not strengthen the building is not considered a structural ceiling. Probably the biggest and best tip for you today is that you may have a ceiling in your that you're working, and somebody comes along and put in a suspended ceiling, and they're going to run plumbing or they're going to run gas lines or whatever above that, right? And they're thinking, whoa, somebody goes, hey, an engineer goes, hey, it's above the suspended ceiling, but that suspended ceiling, unless it adds strength to the building structure, it is not the structural ceiling. It is just a cosmetic ceiling, okay? It may even be added because it adds a fire rating if it's a special fire rated ceiling, but it doesn't necessarily add a structural component to the building. Massive tip for you folks out there, because I tell you what, I get these calls all the time where electrician says, dude, Paul, above my panel, they ran plumbing lines or gas lines or something that was foreign to the electrical, and they ran it. But the engineer said it's okay because it's above a suspended ceiling, even though that suspended ceiling was only like 3 feet above the panel. And they're like, but he says it's okay. It is not okay. It's not okay. Under the general rule, it's not, because that suspended ceiling is not a structural ceiling. Regardless of what they want to believe, it is not. It's not adding any structure to the building, okay? Biggest tip I can give you today. And again, there you go, all right? And that is covered in 110.26E1A for those that want to go look at it. We're not going to do that for time, okay? But now it says no piping, ducts, leak protection apparatus, or other equipment foreign to the electrical installation shall be located in this dedicated equipment space. Nothing. This is yours. Electricians, this is your space. This is for you routing raceways. This is for you putting boxes. This is for you to put things that are germane to the electrical in this dedicated space. And again, it goes from the floor up to the equipment and up 6 feet above the equipment or to the structural ceiling, okay? Not to a suspended ceiling that does not add a structural component, okay? Important difference, okay? Now, one of the things I want to show you is we'll go to 110.26 real quick because I want to show you this. So let's go to the NEC. And I want to go to 110.26E. Since we're already kind of here, let's go. So this is your dedicated equipment space right here, what we're talking about. It says, now, this dedicated equipment space, it says, all service equipment, switchboards, switch gear, panel boards, and motor control centers shall be located in a dedicated space and protected from damage. Notice that it is a very finite, or finite, to what it should say, list, okay? It is specific to service equipment, It's specific to switchboards, switchgear, panel boards. Whereas we saw earlier, the dedicated workspace was to all electrical equipment that is likely to require servicing. Okay? This has to do with the dedicated equipment space above and below it. Okay? Key for you to understand there's a difference between dedicated equipment space and that working space requirement we just left. Okay? Very different. Okay? I just want to make sure that you feel the difference when I talk about the two things. We're talking about for equipment. Okay? Now, what I was talking about here is down here, and wanted to show you this dedicated space here, because there's one I wanted to show you. Let's see if we're here. B. Okay? Foreign systems. Okay? Foreign being anything that is foreign to the electrical system. In other words, has nothing to do with the electrical system. Okay? So the area above the dedicated space required, so anything above that 6 feet or above that structural ceiling that breaks the measurement, okay, it says anything above that shall be permitted to contain foreign systems, provided protection is installed to avoid damage to the electrical equipment from condensation, leaks, or breaks in such foreign systems. So the question always gets asked to me, okay? They always say, well, Paul, I understand that nothing foreign to the system can be in that dedicated equipment space. The footprint of the equipment extends up 6 feet or maybe up 3 feet if it stops at the structural ceiling. I got you. I got it. But what about above that dedicated equipment space that's higher than the 6 feet? Or maybe you have a big suspended ceiling, or you're up above 6 feet, right? And let's say you're up 6 feet and there's nothing in there. And then let's say the suspended ceiling is 7 feet above, but yet you still have an open cavity above it. And so they want to put foreign systems above the dedicated space, but it's over the 6 feet. Can they do it? Yes. It's not in the dedicated equipment space. We got that. But it is still over the dedicated equipment space, even though it's above 6 feet. If that foreign system has the ability to leak anything, cause condensation like in HVAC or plumbing systems or water systems, potable waters, anything like that, and an engineer, because they could be running down a wall, so an engineer could put it up there and say, hey, it's above the dedicated space. It's not in that dedicated space. Stop crying, Mr. Electrician. Well, if it's still running above that dedicated space and it has the propensity to leak, condensate, or cause other potential issues with the equipment below it, then they have to do something to mitigate that. Whether it's put a gutter that can take any water away from it, they have to put something in that could stop this from getting down onto the equipment, okay? So they have to provide some type of protection. Now, I see this all the time where they basically put, it's up there, they have to put it there, it's above the 6 feet, it's up above the suspended ceiling, or up in an open area, right? Like a Costco where they have all this big open area. So they still have systems that run through there. So what they'll do is they'll put the piping, and then underneath it, they'll put basically like a gutter. And a gutter slopes away. So if there is a leak or condensation, then it comes down and it goes down and allows it to get away. That type of thing, okay? Now, as far as the exceptions, there is an exceptions. I need to do a beatbox where you're acting like Betty White. I have to. I don't. I have to see how Betty White is. I'm not drawing a blank on how her voice is, but I can see that. I can see me doing something like that. So anyway, there is an exception, and this exception does allow the suspended ceiling grid to be in that space. Okay, as long as it has removable panels. All right. So, but that's not a foreign system. Okay, it's not doing plumbing. It is obviously foreign to the electrical, but there is an exception that allows the suspended ceiling to go through that 6 foot space above the panel or above the dedicated space. But again, that's an exception to the rule. Okay, and there are some allowances for sprinkler systems and things like that. Yeah, I loved Betty White. She was hilarious. Hilarious. Funny woman. All right, so let's get back to the lesson. All right, so that's what we're talking about. All right, now, what about outdoors? What about outdoors? All right, so outdoor electrical equipment shall be installed in identified enclosures protected from accidental contact with unauthorized personnel. So they're being enclosed, and typically when they're outside, they're going to be NEMA 3Rs. Depending on where you're at, they could be a 4X. They could be other types depending on where you're at or what they're exposed to, that type of thing. Also, outside equipment that is subject to damage may require bollards in order to protect it from damage. Just remember that those bollards that get installed can also not be in that working space. That's another violation that I see from people all the time. Also, if they were to have an outside electrical equipment or exterior service equipment, and you can drive cars up to it, you know how they have the little things down where the wheel stops are? They cannot be in that working space as well, because they could be a trip hazard for somebody working on the equipment, stepping back and trip over those little stops. So you have to be careful outside what is in that clearance. Okay, so now we have shifted back to outdoor equipment. Okay, well, now we're off of the dedicated space for indoor. We talked about indoor dedicated working space. We talked about indoor dedicated equipment space. Now we're shifting outdoors again, and we're talking about service equipment outdoors. So, or electrical equipment outdoor in general. It says outdoor electrical equipment shall be installed in, again, identified enclosures. Probably going to have a NEMA rating, 3R, things like that. Protected from accidental contact by unauthorized personnel. Okay, so all openings are going to be enclosures, and everything. Thanks for joining us, Fernando. Make sure you send your question in because I am running over. So again, send me your question either in Interact or in paulabernathy.com. I'll be sure to answer it. Let's see where we're at. So it also has to be protected against vehicle traffic. May require bollards. And protect from accidental spillage and leakage from piping system. The zone described in 110.26a must be included in the minimum clear working space. So the same type of working clearance, okay? Same rules, okay? Width of the panel, 30 inches, or the width of the equipment, whichever is greater. This type of thing. Right here, you notice what we said, that even though I've got this 30 inches of width, this 30 inches from here to over, or the width of the equipment, remember, I can put multiple things in that 30. So in this 30, I still have my working space width, but also I have a meter in there. That's okay. It doesn't mean that I can't have anything else in that working space. It just means that I have to have the working space, okay? So that's what it meant earlier, where I could have 2 panels in here, that type of thing, or whatever, but I've got to have that working space. And can the working space overlap? Absolutely. I have 2 panels, let's say, and I start from this side and I go 30 inches. And then I have the panel over here. Then I have to make sure that 30 inches at least covers that edge of that panel. If it doesn't, then I would have that panel, which would be 30 inches from that way. So I could have 2 panels there. As long as I've got 30 inches of working space in front of each one of them, then I can fill up that working space if I want, okay? I just kind of wanted to make sure we're aware of that. So this is outside as well. Same working space, same clearances are required. Nothing's different, so you don't have to relearn anything. All right. Now, the zone described in 110.26a must be included in the working clearance. No architectural appurtenances or other equipment can occupy the space in this zone. So I can't have anything that's architectural on the building stick out into the zone, that type of thing. Now, I do have an exception for some overhangs. I have exceptions for roof extensions that may just come down into this space. But other than that, I can't have anything like water spigots sticking in the wall in that space. Again, that would be in the dedicated equipment space as well, because outside we still have that dedicated equipment space, right? Same dedicated equipment space that we have. So I can't have anything protruding out that are foreign to the system. All those type of things. So easy to remember. Whatever you got inside, you have the same type of requirements outside to be aware of these clearances and what's in this dedicated space. Okay. Now, the outdoor dedicated equipment space, okay? So outdoor space, the same concept. Depth, okay? Depth, height, everything's the same for the working space. Nothing changes, okay? Outdoor dedicated equipment space, here's what it says, okay? So now we're outdoors. It says the space equal to the width and depth of the equipment and extend from grade to the height of 6 feet above the equipment. So that's pretty much the same as it was indoors. And it shall be dedicated to the electrical installation. No piping or other equipment foreign to the electrical installation shall be located in this zone. Okay, so if you kind of look at the images or example, and I'll blow it up real quick. Okay, so here's that space. Whether it's surface mount, whether or not it's recessed, or whatever, it's the width and depth of the equipment, okay? Now notice the meter wasn't in that list, okay? It didn't say meter enclosures, and meters are not service equipment, by the way, all right? So here is the width and depth up 6 feet, and it goes down to the grade, so nothing can be in here. Notice over here that they're bringing over the drain line. It is in this dedicated equipment space. It cannot be there. One of the violations that I see all the time is they'll bring down. So they need to reroute this drain. They needed to take it this way and bring it down. Okay, so your electrical inspector may call it out. Electrician may say, dude, I got nothing to do with the drain. I got nothing to do. I don't control the drain. But you can promise you're not going to get the electrical power until they resolve this. So somebody's going to fix it. Trust me. And it ain't my problem as an electrician. I can sit there and go, you call me when you get it moved, right? And no, you can't put a pan under this because this is not more than 6 feet, okay? So they would have to put something to keep it from in the space. So they're going to have to route it this way. Not the electrician's responsibility, okay? Now, this example right here is just showing you that overhang. So this is the structural frame, or the structural, and it is not more than 6 feet. However, it is a roof extension, and as you saw, there is an exception to allow the roof extension to be in that space. That would be okay on the exterior, not a problem. In fact, it specifically mentions that that's okay, all right? So you still have nothing can be in this space, okay? And this happens to be a side mount of a NEMA 3R outdoor installation, and this red is just showing you the width or the depth of this enclosure, okay? So that's an example of the exception that allows that to be in that space or to reduce that space, okay? All right, now, dedicated equipment space pertains to all switchboards, switchgear, panel boards, and motor control centers. That's a finite list, okay? It's not all equipment, it's just those things, okay? When it comes to that dedicated space. All right. Now, electrical equipment. Let's talk a little bit about this, because again, this is remember the working space requirements in 110.26. It said all electrical equipment. Okay, all electrical equipment. So it says all electrical equipment must be surrounded by sufficient unobstructed space to allow ready and safe equipment operation and maintenance, 110.26. The disconnecting means for an air conditioning and refrigeration equipment must meet the clear working space requirement in 110.26a, as well as it's how stated in 440.14. We all know 110.26a, but we may not be familiar with 440.14, so we're going to go look at it and see what it says. And it says right here, it says the disconnecting means. Now, see this right here in gray? This was added in the 2023 edition because people were confused. They said, no, I don't need to have clearance on that disconnect. Or no, it doesn't likely to require servicing because you can turn the power off upstream. But where are you going to measure power? Are you going to pull the equipment apart to go inside of it to measure it? No. The service technician, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go and open the disconnect to check and make sure they have power. Ain't no sense in working on a damn piece of equipment if your one leg is dropped and it's not working. Okay, so they need to verify this. No technician worth their salt, okay, is going to go pull the cover off an HVAC unit and remove 4 damn screws when they can open a disconnect and pop it in order to just check and see that first that they have voltage there. That is testing it. That is checking for the presence of voltage. That's examining it. That means it's likely to require examination when somebody's going to be servicing this. So let's put that to rest. If you're not in the 2023, you're thinking, well, I don't have to have working clearance on that disconnect. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well, it's not likely to require examination. Yes, it is. Maybe not for you, but it's going to be for the technician. Plus, how do you know there's no damage in the branch circuit that's going out to that disconnect? How do you know? Unless you check it at the disconnect. That's examination. So the problem with this, and I'll tell you, my brother runs into this. Here's the problem. Is that most of the time the electrician gets there and stubs out the wire, okay? And I recommend you, if you don't have to stub it out, don't stub it out, because then you put the NM cable. If you're stubbing it out, then it gets moisture in it and creates problems unless you're going to seal it off and yada, yada, yada. Is most people will just leave it curled up in the inside if it's in a crawl space and then poke it out. One, leave you enough, because you never know where those HVAC guys are going to put their damn unit. And once it's there and it's soldered in, you can't move it. So here's what happens to us poor electricians. We may put our disconnect up and we think that the HVAC guy is smart enough, and I'm not saying this to be mean to the HVAC guy, but you think that they could see the disconnect and go, well, I better not block it, so I'll just move my unit to the left or to the right. And remember, the 30 inches goes from the edge of the equipment, the width of the equipment, or 30 inches, whichever is greater. So as long as, if my unit's right, if my disconnect's right here, and I go from the edge of it, so this side of it, and this is the disconnect, then I got 30 inches, right? 30 inches. So they should put, if they put it just on this side of it right here, then I still got my 30 inches, then they could be right here in line with it. And they can come straight down from here and go to it, and I've got my working clearance requirement. But the moment they put it over here or anywhere over here, then I could impinge on my working space. So the problem is when you poke it out, or you put the cable out, or you put the disconnect up because you're there before they get there, or you see their refrigerant lines or their suction lines poked out, and you're thinking, oh, I'll just go on and put the disconnect up and maybe even whip it. You don't even know where it is. And they'll come, and Murphy's Law is they're going to put it right in front of your damn disconnect, or right in front of where you stub out your cable. Screws you every time, okay? So that's how it usually happens. But it's much easier for you to move your disconnect than it is for them to move their unit. So a lot of times what people have to do is put a weatherproof junction box up right there and then extend it down and put the disconnect a little further down and then whip it over. That type of stuff. That's what you have to do, because again, if it's all finished and it's a finished wall, I'm not taking off siding. I tell the homeowner, I'm saying, look, you're going to have a junction box outside, and I'm going to have to make a splice, and I'm going to have to run it down a little ways so I can put the disconnect so I got my working clearance, and then I will whip out and run over to your HVAC unit. Well, I don't want that box and a disconnect on the side of my wall. Suck it up. Suck it up, buttercup, because that's how I'm going to get it done. And I'm not going to sit there and try to open up the siding and do whatever. No, it wasn't my mistake. Now, if you want to pay me to fish it over and do everything, and then okay. You got the money, I'll do whatever you want. As an electrician, I was a change order king, baby. If you want something done, I'm more than happy to change it. But you know what? Unlike my brother, who I love to death, who's the nicest guy in the world, he would just do it. Me? Unless it's a crawl space where you can poke it back out and poke it over and poke it out again. But if it's finished, dude, you're paying my ass. I'm just saying. Hey, you could take it out of the HVAC guy's money. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? All right, back to the lesson. All right, so the disconnect means, and we saw that requirement. Oh, I didn't show it to you. Damn it. So here's the change in the 2023, but it was always required. The only reason it's added here is for clarity, and that's why we change the code every 3 years. Sometimes we have to add clarity, but it still was required before, okay? Now it says the disconnecting means shall be permitted to be installed on or within the air conditioning or refrigeration equipment. Okay, so it can be mounted on. It just can't be on the access panels. Okay, so you can't sit there and go mount this damn thing on the panel that you removed to get access to the HVAC. You can't put it on the damn panel. But you could get equipment where it's built into the unit, a big HVAC equipment. It might be mounted in it. Okay, it's integral. Or you can mount it on the side of it. Just be careful when you're drilling and mounting it that you're not going to poke into any of the cooling lines in it or any of the lines that are inside of it. I've seen people call me about that. Use a damn long tack screws like that or self-tapping screws. Be careful. But the code says it can be on it, just can't block the access door. I say, why do that? Mount it to the structure, be done with it. You know what I'm saying? But do you is up to you. Okay? All right. So as it says here, the disconnecting means shall not be located on panels that are designed to allow access to the equipment. Okay? So, or where they would be covering something like a nameplate. Yeah, y'all know better than that. So you wouldn't do that anyway. Okay? All right. All right, so that's that. Let's get back to the lesson here. All right. So the disconnecting means for air conditioning equipment or refrigerator equipment must be located within sight of the equipment and must also be readily accessible. So that is, again, 410.14. Right? Now, we do have an exception to that rule, and I don't know that we talk about it. No, it doesn't talk about it here, but there is a little exception to that rule, by the way. Usually, you're just going to have the disconnect right there. It's obviously, but there is an exception, number one, right here. It says, where the disconnecting means provided in accordance with 430.102a is lockable in accordance with 110.25, which is lockable in the open position provision. Guys, it says, and the refrigerating and air conditioning equipment is essential to an industrial process in the facility with a written safety procedure, and where the conditions of maintenance and supervision ensure that only qualified persons service the equipment, a disconnecting means within sight of the equipment shall not be required. That means that if it's one of those special occasions where it is actually industrial processing, which ain't going to have nothing to do with regular commercial applications or a residential, so you're going to have that disconnect. This is saying if you have that unique situation, and guess what? You can go straight to the HVAC equipment, don't need the disconnect, as long as we're back in the panel. You have a disconnect and it's lockable in the open position in accordance with 110.25, then we'll let you not have to have another disconnect at the equipment. That only pertains to industrial processes, okay? Not to everyday commercial applications or everyday residential. So if you're sitting there going, hey, I can use that exception, no, put a disconnect at it. Now, does it have to be a fuse? No, it could be simply just a pull out. That's all. Remember, this isn't an overcurrent protection rule. This is a disconnecting mean requirement. Disconnecting means. It could be a disconnect with a breaker in there that doesn't have an overcurrent protection. It's just a switch. It's a disconnecting means. Your overcurrent protection is where? Up at the origin of the branch circuit in the panel. That's where your protection is. Okay. This is just a disconnect. Okay. To allow you to be able to disconnect it and work on the equipment effectively. Okay. Makes sense? All right. All right, so we're going to leave today. Tomorrow, we'll get into service equipment and panel boards. We'll talk about emergency disconnects, when you need them, when you don't, labeling, requirements, and all that kind of stuff. So that is not tomorrow, excuse me. That'll be Monday. That's Monday's lesson, so you can do your homework. Go look at 230.85 to bring any questions that may be germane to the topic. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about cabinets and enclosures, so y'all know the difference between a panel board and an enclosure and a cabinet. We're going to be delving into those. We'll kind of look at some of the types, whether it's type 1, which is what you're going to see inside of a normal building all the time. We'll talk about NEMA 3R, those type of things. We're going to talk about circuit breakers, unused openings, circuit directories, what we're required to do when it comes to a circuit directory and how it's supposed to be legible and things like that. We're also going to look at circuit breakers, the ratings of circuit breakers, the minimum circuit breaker ratings, okay, and what they would be for exams and things like that. We're going to look at all of that. And we're going to talk a little bit about AFCIs. And we're going to talk about backfed breakers. We're going to talk about grouping of services and all those things that are all about the overcurrent protection in 230.90. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff. We're going to look at the ratings in 230.79. Dude, we still got a lot of ground to cover. So if you're thinking of popping off and saying, dude, I'm done with this fat Abernathy cat, don't you go nowhere. Because when we get part 4, we're going to be digging deeper into services and electrical equipment. Dude, I'm excited. So let's go give some things away today. And that'll be it for our lesson today. Let's do some spinning the wheel, give some goodness, get people registered. Let's go. Oh, I'm jacked up. Got my coffee. Pulling out the guns. They were bigger guns when I was in my 20s. You know, I already think you won this. Hold on. You already won this, Tino, so let's spin again for you. Tino, you already won this. So we're spinning again because I happen to know you already won this because you're already in it and I shared it with you. So let's give you a chance to win something else. I don't think you'd want to. All right, so Tino, all right, you're going to be in the drawing, Tino H. Boy, you're going to get all our programs if you win. You're going to be in for the drawing for the 2023 grounding and bonding course. Cool. All right, you're in that drawing. Boy, you're gonna, if you win that money, you'll be stacking up the different things. Ryan's jacked up on Mountain Dew. There you go. All right, let's do this again here. Congratulations, Tino. You're in the drawing. Now we're not going to give away a course, a drawing. We're going to let the oh man. Let's see here. All right, you won the free wire waffle. So I might already have it, but Alex, make sure you send me your information, your address, and all that kind of stuff. Send it to me so that we can get you on the list to get a wire waffle. For those that don't know what a wire waffle is or have never joined us, this makes the violation of 312.5C that so many people do, like you folks in Arizona, makes it go away where you're bringing all those non-metallic sheet cables through a single opening. That's a violation of the code. This solves that problem. Whoop, whoop. Say. Okay, there you go. We have a bunch of those we're giving away. So make sure, Alex, you send me your information again with your mailing address and your full name, and I will get one of those out to you. Been a long one today, folks. We've been up almost 2 hours, longer than normal. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to have to rename this. It's no longer coffee hour. I'm just saying. All right. We got Anselmo. Is that it? Anselmo Caro? All right, you're in the drawing for conductor length card. Those are neat cards to keep in your wallet. I don't have one available right here, but it's basically like these voltage drop cards. It's a thick card. It's not going to bend in your wallet. And it's great to have on site. It'll tell you how much wire's still left on a reel, in a coil, how much NM's left in a reel, or maybe on a coil or something. It'll let you kind of know. And it allows the changes in temperature if you want to adjust it a little bit, because you're going to need an ohm meter to be able to do this. But it kind of allows you to be able to calculate that out. Or you can just use the standard values that we already have on here, and it'll get you usually within 10 to 15 feet, which is usually good enough. What you don't want to do is get into a pool and then run out. So this kind of is that extra insurance to have in your pocket. You can pull it out with one of your guys, or you're running something and go, hey, wait a minute, let's just make sure we're within the margin of error here before we get this pulled, and then all of a sudden we don't have enough, okay? Of course, you could have a wire with sequential marking on it, and it makes it kind of moot. But you typically don't always get sequential marking on cable assemblies, things like MCs and stuff like that. So anyway, there you go. You're in the drawing for that. Also, it is Mother's Day weekend. My mother passed away about 5 years ago from cancer. I was there. I was blessed enough to be holding her hand at the moment she passed. And it wasn't for my dad, but my brothers were all around my mom when it passed, and that type of thing. So I always remember that. Rob, that's my favorite coin right there, brother. Right there, Rob. That is the ultimate coin that is available on our website if people want to pick it up. The favorite coin of mine, period. It settles decisions and arguments, that type of thing. So that is the ultimate decision coin. And I will mention who won that in the first quarter, which those will be going out if you sent me your address. Is who won that last time? D'Angelo Larangana, okay, whatever. Trenton Dormant won it, and Miles, Miles Mahoney Music. If y'all have not sent your email for that, I'm sure Jeff has it if you did, but y'all won that ultimate coin. Okay, so Trenton Dormant, if you're here, D'Angelo Laranaga, and Miles Mahoney Music. Make sure you've sent your information to us so that we have your full name and address for that ultimate coin. You're going to be glad you did. It's an awesome coin, that type of thing. All right. Oh yeah. Happy Mother's Day. All the coming up, all of the mothers out there. I am promising you 100% my son will not reach out to his mom. We don't associate with our son since he threatened to kill us a couple years ago. So we don't communicate with him. Don't say, oh, I'm sad, Paul, you don't have that relationship with your son. He's a dick, so I don't want that relationship with him. So I'm okay. Don't worry. No tears for me. All right, and let's go. Spin that wheel again. Rather than my son allow me to help him and create a career in our field, he was always against me. Even at a book signing, back when I used book signings, he'd be an a-hole during the signing. He's like, why are y'all here to meet my dad? He's a whatever. I was like, everybody look at me and go, I'm sorry, Paul. I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. We don't always. There you go. All right, so let's say battle. Guess what, dude? You're in the drawing for this coin, this ultimate coin. All right, so you're in the drawing, dude. That's awesome. That's my favorite coin out there. Maybe this is a trend. Let's do another one, see if it happens again. I used it the other day for me and my wife going out to eat. And she wanted Hardee's, and they're both right next to each other. I did not feel like Hardee's. I wanted a bagel, and she was like, but I want, and I know we could have gone to both, and it's your wife. But you know me, I pulled out the coin. We keep one in the car, in the Jeep. I have a Jeep Gladiator. I keep one in the little console. And what did I do? I said, okay. Yes side, McDonald's. No side, Hardee's. Flipped it. Guess what? Whoop, whoop, McDonald's, baby. I won. She didn't. That's okay. The next day I took her to Hardee's. But I try to spoil her. But every time I get a chance to use the coin, I do. And to be honest with you, it doesn't always come out in my favor. All right, so Miles, just spoke of the devil with you, my friend. You are in the drawing for the NFC card. And the NFC card, by the way, these are available on our website for purchase. If you have a business, you can program your website onto it, your pay system onto it. Get one for your guys to be able to tap the customer's phone. Get your information in their phone. Go get a Linktree account. It's free. And on that Linktree, you can put your website, your pay portal, your social medias. And then when you're at a customer, ask them to if they have a phone, ask them to turn their NFC on and tap it. Or it may already be on. Put it right on the phone. Here's another tip. If you have a plumbing contractor and a mechanical person you like that are friends of yours and they want to refer you and you can refer them, put them on the card as well. And what you can do is tap the card, save it on their phone and say, you know what? If you ever have a need for a plumber or mechanical, I got a trusted resource. All you got to do is open it up and tap it. And I trust them so you can trust them. Okay, it builds a bond between you, other contractors. Y'all create your own little network. And NFC cards are amazing to do that. Okay, get to know your contractors in your area. I'm just saying, Pick a plumber, pick a mechanical guy, pick a home inspector, pick a realtor, pick a roofer, and form a relationship with them, okay? Get out of your shell, get out of your comfort zone, and take them out to a cup of coffee and say, look, I want to refer business to you, and I'd love for you to consider referring business to me, but I have this neat little NFC, and I'm going to promote you with all of my customers, and that type of thing, and hopefully they'll be one click away from being able to reach you, and it's a beautiful thing. Networking is what we call it, that type of thing. All right, so there you go. So let's do one more. I know I'm going over and over and over. Erie says, I'm an old man waiting to get it. All right, fella, make sure you send me that information in email. You won a free wire waffle today. Okay, so Outdoor Man, Alex, you got to send me your information in battles. Jonathan, I believe you got to send me your give me your contact information. And you might have already sent it, but send it again. That way I can make sure it gets out to you. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go. Been about 2 hours today. A lot of information. Hopefully you watch it at 5 o'clock tonight. Regain some information again. Pause it. You have any questions, bring it back. And remember, if you have any electrical questions that we did not cover, do me a favor. Go to paulabernathy.com. Send it to us. Be as detailed as you can. Let me know what code cycle you're on. You can send me questions that way. Okay? Do it through paulabernathy.com. You also, if you're in our Fast Tracks program, you can use the Fast Tracks Interact. It's built into your course. Just log into your course and you'll see the little blue thing at the bottom right. Click on that and cut and paste or post your question in there. That's the best way. Don't use the comment sections in your course. That's for giving comments about the course and things like that. Although, again, if you happen to put one there, I'm still going to answer it for you because that's how I am. That's the kind of guy that's solid. I'm going to do that for you. But again, check it out. All right, folks, y'all have a great weekend. Be safe. Have fun. I'm going to be working on the mini excavator if it stays dry because I worked on it the other day where it was muddy, and that is a mess. So hopefully it's dry because I got a lot of dirt to move. Got a lot of stumps to still dig up. So wish me luck. All right. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. Join us Monday. Share it with your friends. Coffee Hour. Peace. I'm on mute. Hell yeah, I can spin again for you. Pays to hang around. Sorry, had the mute on. You want a wire waffle again. All right, I'm going to spin again. You're a magnet for wire waffles. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn the audio back on. Oh, hell yeah, I can spin again for you. Forgot to turn it on. What the crap? I think this thing wants me to stay all day. What the heck is going on here? Jiminy crickets! Paul says, I'll take a spin. Woo! All right, Battles, guess what? You now have 2 chances. Who said you were lucky?
a little while ago. You now have 2 chances to win that ultimate coin. Boy, you increased your odds, bro. All right? To get that neat coin. All right? How you like that? All right, folks. Sorry, no more spinning. Y'all take care. God bless. Have a productive weekend. Be safe. Spend it with the family. If you're going through any time, you're struggling, think about prayer. We're thinking of you. And you'll make it through it. We always make it through it. And we will catch you on the other side. Take it Monday.